It looks like Arsenal are very, very close to Victor Gyokeres, but with rumours circling yesterday about Alexander Isak potentially being back on the market, will Arsenal regret their summer striker signing? This is another episode of Arsenal Unfiltered, your 3 times a week dose of Arsenal coverage with me, your host, Mark. Wherever you are in the world, I hope you are well, and that is what we are talking about today. The news that came out yesterday all about Liverpool's pursuit or continued interest, shall we say, of Alexander Isak. It might go nowhere, but will Arsenal in the long term regret not sticking around, not waiting it out for Alexander Isak? We will discuss that all today. You may notice I've got an Arsenal shirt up on the wall, but I'm in an Indonesia shirt today. Shout out to all the Arsenal Unfiltered listeners from Indonesia. I have just got back from there, and it is a wonderful country. So shout out to you guys. We're going to get started, but just before we do, if you liked any of the YouTube content, which we've struggled with a little bit, we've had some issues with recording and stuff like that, or you like the podcast, which you can find on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts from, please do consider, if you're on YouTube, like and subscribing, and if you're on audio platforms, giving a 5-star review and following the podcast. It really, really does help. Okay, so let's get started. Let's get into the video. So yesterday, let's just talk about the day yesterday, because there was a lot going on. We had, I think, at basically the same time even, Ornstein and Fabrizio Romano broke a story that Liverpool have not made a formal offer to Newcastle. It's quite a strange scenario, really. They'd indicated that they are willing to do a deal to Newcastle, but they weren't saying, this is the money we're putting on the table, this is an official bid. So really quite odd way of doing business. I guess it's just to gauge interest, just to understand, is this possible? Is this something that we can still do? Obviously, Liverpool are in a really weird scenario at the moment. They've got Darwin Nunez on the books, who is very, very clear. He wants to leave. Liverpool are entertaining figures for him, but his major hope and want to go to Napoli no longer looks like a real thing. Napoli have signed a different striker. So it looks like Nunez to Napoli is off. Now, they've also obviously lost Diogo Jota because of the tragedy earlier this summer, and they've signed Florian Wirtz. So they've got quite a strange-looking front line at the moment. They've obviously got Mo Salah, Cody Gakpo's still there, but Nunez wants away. Florian Wirtz, we don't know if he's been signed to be a false nine or a number 10, or something maybe different. He has, I think, played off the left before, so they've got a strange front line, and they are looking to do business for Alexander Isak. So this comes out in the morning, and obviously my first reaction was a little bit of worry. I must admit it was worry, because if you put Wirtz, you put Salah, and you put Isak in the same team, and then you throw in, little sprinklings of Cody Gakpo, Dominic Szoboszlai. That is a very difficult team to stop. And, you can have all the Salibas, Gabriels, and Declan Rices in the world. But, those attackers are just something else, aren't they? So I was worried that this might suddenly become a thing. We have seen players, well, the player we're after, Victor Gyokeres, we've seen players kind of down tools to force a move. Would Alexander Isak do that? We just don't know. And at that point in the morning, I was quite worried. Now, since Sky Sports have come out and basically said Newcastle are not doing a deal, this guy is not for sale. Just as he wasn't for sale when we were looking at him, he has 3 years left on his contract. Newcastle don't need the money because they managed to get Champions League qualification. So they are in a very good place financially. They don't need to do a deal for Alexander Isak. So for them, they're not entertaining it. And as well, Liverpool wanted to do a deal around 120 million mark. And I think the figure that's always been quoted for Alexander Isak is 150 million. So massively short of that figure. Now, just on a side note, where are Liverpool getting all their money from? I do not understand it. To spend basically, I think 170, 180 million quid on players when you look at Gyokeres, Frimpong and Wirtz already, and then go and try and make a bid for a £120 million player in the same window is mind-boggling to me. I'm not going to sit here and say no one should spend lots and lots of money. Arsenal spend lots and lots of money, but I don't know where they're getting that much from. I really don't. But anyway, it's beside the point. So Sky Sports, like I said, they kind of rubbish the links, saying that this isn't going to happen, and Liverpool are actually going to turn their attention to Hugo Ekitike. But it got me thinking, right? It got me thinking, Isak will move at some point. There is so much noise about this player, and he is such a talent. unless Newcastle go nuclear in the next sort of 1 to 2 seasons, he's going to go. I don't think he's going to sign another contract at Newcastle, and we will have Victor Gyokeres at that time. That is the most likely scenario. That there's rumours that Sporting are making the final stages very difficult for us, but I don't think we are at a place where we aren't getting this over the line. It's just going to maybe take a few more days than Arsenal want. So yeah, it's really difficult scenario with how you balance wanting a player for the long term, and in the way that we really, really pursued David Raya. That's my comparator. We pursued him over several seasons, and we went and got Ramsdale as a kind of stopgap solution. Is Gyokeres our stopgap solution to Alexander Isak? Now, it's a really interesting one. He will go at some point. I think by going for Gyokeres, we block a future move for Sesko far less than we would Isak. So going for Gyokeres, we block a move for Isak far less than we would have done if we'd gone for Sesko. Sesko's 22. So if we invest, we were never going to invest the 90 million, but if we had invested 70, 80 million into Leipzig's Benjamin Sesko, then there is a good chance that if Isak becomes available next summer or the summer after, Arsenal are just saying, we can't do that. We have our guy, we've made our choice, and we have to invest time in Benjamin Sesko. With Gyokeres, let's say Isak goes 2 more seasons at Newcastle. With Gyokeres, he'll be 29 at that point. There is a world where you could say, okay, well, we need to renew, we're ready to renew, and we're going to go and get Alexander Isak and maybe look to make a bit of a sale, recoup some fee on Victor Gyokeres, or maybe even just allow him to kind of fall into that second striker mould as he moves into his 30s. Arsenal are going to play a lot of games. There's going to be a lot of game time for him, and that might be the final move of Kai Havertz back into the midfield. That could be a reorientation that we might do. So in terms of regretting it, I don't think we've shut the door on the Alexander Isak deal. I really don't. We've shut the door on it this summer, and we've probably shut the door on it next summer. If Isak decides to move next summer, I don't think we've got a chance. But if he gets into the final year of his contract, that fee will be reduced massively. Arsenal will be able to take a gamble on a fee that is far, far lower than anything that's being spoken about now, anything that they'd spend for Gyokeres. This could be an Arsenal player in a couple of years' time. We just don't know. And I think it's really interesting to think, are Newcastle already prepping for Alexander Isak's departure? They are going big in their attack. Of course, they've already got great players like Anthony Gordon, Harvey Barnes, Isak himself. Now they're looking at Ekitike. They're throwing Anthony Elanga into that mix. I just wonder, are they already prepping for an Isak exit? Maybe next season or the season after. So Isak could still be an Arsenal player in 2 seasons' time, but will we regret it? That's the main question. And I think it's tough to say, and it will all depend on how well this Victor Gyokeres deal goes. If Victor Gyokeres becomes a 20-goal-a-season striker, and we see Alexander Isak go to Liverpool next season, let's say, I don't think we will regret it. I think we will be happy with our choice. And we've got to remember that whatever happens with Alexander Isak, Arsenal had to move this summer. They had to move for a striker this summer. And all of us as Arsenal fans wanted them to do it in time for the pre-season tour. Now, the pre-season tour, the guys have been in La Manga, so they've been doing a training camp in La Manga. I think they fly to Southeast Asia in 3 days with their first game on the 23rd of July against AC Milan. Now, in a coming episode, the next episode of Arsenal Unfiltered, I'm going to do a pre-season preview. So keep your eyes peeled for that. I'm going to preview all the pre-season games. I'm going to look ahead to what we might expect, some tactical changes to look out for. So keep your eyes peeled for that episode. So yeah, I think it's really, really interesting. Newcastle prepping for a potential exit for Isak, and I just don't think we will regret it if Gyokeres is a success. Even if Isak goes somewhere else in the future, to Liverpool or maybe even to Real Madrid or Barcelona, right? He's that good. He could go anywhere that he wants. I don't think we will regret it if Gyokeres is a success. Now, flip that coin. If Gyokeres has a kind of underwhelming first season and then Alexander Isak becomes on the market next summer, I'm sure there will be clamour from Arsenal fans to go and get him. And I'm not sure the club will be able to do that financially. They've got to reply by the rules, and this summer has been huge for Arsenal. It's been big for Liverpool. They are going absolutely massive. Chelsea are going massive as well. but Arsenal are right up there and going big. And, it's going to be 200 million plus by the time we're done. So it's going to be a very exciting summer for us, this one. But it might put limits on future deals. So, yeah, there could be a world where Gyokeres is a bit underwhelming, and next summer Isak is going to move, and we potentially can't go and move for him because of the finances. That would be a position where we might regret not waiting out for him. Of course, Arsenal have already missed out on Alexander Isak in 2022 when he went to Newcastle. Arsenal were at that table. We missed out on him. We didn't want to do a deal at that point. Maybe too much of a risk on that player at that time. His injury record is still, up in the air. People are talking about, Liverpool are talking about spending £120 million on this player. I do think last season was the only season where he stayed properly fit for a whole year. So that's one to kind of look out for. If we do sign him in the future, or if anyone signs him in the future, will his injury record be as good as it has been this season? We just don't know on that one. But yeah, for me, you might get a really, really good season out of Victor Gyokeres. And that would stop any form of kind of future regret about Alexander Isak. But if the Gyokeres deal is even slightly underwhelming and it stops Arsenal maybe, or this summer, I should say, in a totality, stops Arsenal moving for Alexander Isak because he is going to leave Newcastle in 1 to 2 years' time. That is my really, really strong belief. We might regret it then. A crazy day yesterday, a crazy day. There was so much worry that Liverpool might get Alexander Isak, and then there was obviously the rubbish reports, the Ekatike links. Just on that, Ekatike seems like a very similar player to Isak, so Liverpool clearly know what they want. They're building a slightly different style for Arne Slot than they did for Jurgen Klopp. They are going to have these flying wing-backs. And look, they did that with Jurgen Klopp, but they tended to have a Fabinho, a Jordan Henderson in the midfield. It doesn't feel like Liverpool are in the market for any six. We've gone and got Zuba, so it seems like they're just happy with Ryan Gravenberch. I don't think his level as a six can remain as high as it was last season. It's just not his natural position. It's not what he was built to do. Fair play to him if he does manage to extend and keep going for that amount of time as a six and play at that level. But I would be worried if I was a Liverpool fan. Strikers coming in, Vert's coming in, 2 flying fullbacks coming in. Van Dijk, his age will catch up with him eventually. Rumours Canate might leave at some point in the future. That's an ongoing one. There doesn't seem to be too much focus on the defence. I don't know. Arne Slot, maybe he's the antithesis of Mikel Arteta, but we will see. We will see. Some more news that came out yesterday, which is obviously fantastic for Arsenal fans, is that Ethan Nwaneri and that deal is moving ever closer. Now, there's been conflicting reports about whether the game time was a big issue for Ethan. And I think it was David Ornstein said, I don't have it in front of me, so apologies if I'm misquoting, but definitely one report said there was no kind of issue on the game time discussion, and Fabrizio Romano made a point to talk about the game time and the minutes that Ethan Nwaneri will be getting in his update about the contract renewal news and how that had progressed. Now, we spoke about this kind of in the last episode, how this is obviously really, really good news for Arsenal. Where will he play? Well, it looks like it with Noni Madueke coming in, he will be a far more central player, which, a lot of people are saying that's where they see him anyway. They see him being a backup to Martin Odegaard and maybe the successor to Martin Odegaard in a period of time. So Ethan Nwaneri will probably get minutes there. I think it was strange how the two reports very much framed the minutes argument and the minutes thing in very, very different lights. For me, I think this one's simple. If you are a player who's 18 years of age and you have many, many clubs looking at you, interested in you, and probably approaching your agent and stuff like that, you're going to ask them all about minutes, including your boyhood club. Whether it's your boyhood club or not, you're going to want to know, am I playing? How many minutes am I going to get? He made 39 appearances last season. He's going to want to at least match that, if not add to that. And fair enough. I cannot fault anyone for wanting to know that they are going to play. But I just think as soon as that gets out into the media, a lot of people tend to say, oh, he's demanding too much. I saw a ridiculous thing on TalkSport where they were saying to Ethan Nwaneri, like, how dare you demand minutes at 18? I'm like, well, he's one of the best 18-year-olds in the country. Like, why shouldn't he demand minutes? And of course, when we say demand minutes, I don't think Ethan Nwaneri is walking into a room with his agent and going, I want to play more minutes than Martin Odegaard. I want Bukayo Saka's spot in this team. I don't think he's saying that. I think he wants to know I'm going to get 10 starts and 30 off the bench. I think he wants to know that he's got some level of guarantee around those minutes and he's not just going to fade into memory. That's all. I really don't think it's more than that. And I think we should respect a player who is willing to go to that length to get himself a career, to get himself a top level career. I think we should respect that. So that's massive news, of course. We're expecting Christian Mosquera this week. We're expecting Noni Madueke this week. Medicals all sort of being wrapped up for those guys, and they are dotting the I's and crossing the T's on those contracts. So it's been a very, very busy week so far for Arsenal. It's only going to get busier. Liverpool are making us worried. We might regret the Alexander Isak deal in a few seasons time, but we had to move this summer, so I think we've done the right thing going for Victor Gyokeres. I might be proved wrong. If Victor Gyokeres is really underwhelming, we might look at an Alexander Isak transfer in the summer and feel very, very disappointed or very, very upset by the fact that we didn't manage to get him when we were in for him. But that is not something that we can control, unfortunately. I'm going to leave it there, guys. Like I said at the start, if you've liked this episode and you're on YouTube, like and subscribe. If you are on audio platforms, please follow and leave a 5-star review wherever you get your podcasts from. And of course, if you're interested in chatting to me, you want to make a point on today's episode or suggest kind of topics for other episodes, find me on Blue Sky, Arsenal Unfiltered at bsky.social. Come on to Blue Sky and find me on there. DM me, chat, reply to any of my posts. Always happy to talk to people. All that's left to say, guys, is thank you for following, thank you for listening, and I will speak to you very, very soon.